Since their inception, the X-Men have had various interpretations, each bringing an exciting story to the forefront, but every superhero group has gone through the idea of a kid version of them with the same powers. The Justice League episode Kid Stuff explored this to much success, and even Marvel did it with a complete TV series. Similarly, the X-Men managed to explore this arc with the X-Babies. Yes, even though they were not exactly babies. But Chris Claremont didn't go easy with this arc, and used it to have quite the fun. Let's jump right into the story of the X-Babies and their exploits. Before we go into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origin story of X-Babies. The X-Babies were introduced as a concept that would take in the profound idea of that world with characters who are teenagers. It expands on the tiny arguments and rivalries inside the group when the characters become younger. But it all started with Mojo, the interdimensional being who is the ruler of the realm Mojo world. This villain is somewhat like Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster from Thor Ragnarok, as he likes to see the mutants take into violent and brutal fights against each other on television for entertainment. He uses mind control and manipulation abilities to do whatever he wants with these mutants. This time, Mojo plans to de-age the mutants and make them teenagers, which becomes quite entertaining as the mutants' egos crash. In the end, they prove they are united against the enemy. In issue 12 of the X-Men Annual, we see Mojo enjoying watching the X-Men in their danger room as they play an exciting rendition of tag, trying to catch Magneto. Still, the latter manages to get away from them every time, but Mojo decides to increase the stakes by putting Longshot directly in the room with some ectoplasmic goop that spills on all the characters. As they try to collect the goop to analyze it, it completely disappears, thus reducing the chances of investigating the case. They take Longshot, who had been a slave to Mojo for quite a long time, and put him in the medical lab. The next day, the X-Men wake up with exciting developments. They seem to become younger. Besides being younger, our favorite mutants appear to have increased their ego issues as Wolverine and Colossus continue arguing with each other. But the X-Men can't find this out at first and only realize it when the New Mutants point it out to them. As Betsy manages to figure out the person responsible for this, the team of heroes, now younger, decides to find him. Since they were getting younger as they spoke, the New Mutants tried to stop them, only to fail. Their de-aging starts with working rapidly now, and they end up being 6-year-olds when they leave the Rolls-Royce they had taken to find Mojo. The mutants had gotten younger according to their average age, meaning Kitty had become a baby while going into the car. They come across some police officers who ask them if they are with their parents, but Magneto manages to get rid of them as they run through the park. As they reach the building where Mojo is supposed to be, they plan an attack on him, but it goes haywire when a spell takes over them and they start listening to Mojo. Since all the X-Men are now in danger, the New Mutants decide to take matters into their own hands and resolve to go after them. Mirage gets them the costumes and Illyana teleports them directly to the location where the X-Men had gone. But before they could figure out what to do, Mojo ordered the X-Men to attack the New Mutants. Spiral manages to ensure that the X-Men win by controlling the audience and controlling them. However, Rogue manages to get out of Mojo's control when she discovers something is wrong with her memories since they seem to have been manipulated. Magic realizes that the X-Men are under some sort of spell when her soul sword manages to break through the spell for a second during her fight with Wolverine. Karma realizes that she needs to get a hold of Wolverine because he has been through something like this before and manages to break him out of Mojo's control. Kitty comes to the rescue as she manages to disrupt Mojo's chair and cancels the spell that had put all the X-Men in his control. But the X-Men and the New Mutants decide to focus their attacks on the interdimensional being, but Mojo manages to teleport out of there before he can be harmed. As the New Mutants celebrate their win, an ability to manage taking action when the X-Men are in a challenging situation, Mojo celebrates that his experiment was a success. with the approval rating for the X-Babies going high. By now, it is evident that Mojo is a producer interested in bringing a wide variety of content by putting the heroes at stake. It might also be a take on us viewers, since we enjoyed the X-Babies arc, making us part of the joke Chris Claremont and Paul Smith laughed at. But this won't be the last time we will see Mojo face the X-Babies, since he becomes much more desperate than the last time to see his ratings increase. In the I Want My X-Men story from annual number 12 of the Uncanny X-Men, we see that Mojo has become desperate upon coming to terms with the X-Men sacrificing their lives to stop their enemy. He starts wondering how this will affect his ratings, considering the X-Men and their exploits were responsible for most of the ratings he had managed to get in the past few times he could broadcast. Getting hold of Rita, he decides to look for possible replacements for the X-Men according to her suggestion. We get to see a variety of renditions of the X-Men during this casting call, with one of them being an utterly female version, a robot version, a rather kinky version, and a version with all the mutants represented by animals. Finally, he comes across the X-Babies with Rogue, Wolverine, Havoc, Storm, Dazzler, Longshot, Colossus, and Psylocke. But this only angers Mojo, and he takes out a hit on Longshot by turning him into a photo. The X-Babies don't take this lightly and jump in to attack him. During this battle between the X-Babies and Mojo's soldiers, Major Domo informs Mojo that this is quite a success. Mojo accepts the plan and uses it to return to his broadcasting success with the exploits of the X-Babies. Thus begins a new series of adventures with the X-Babies and Mojo going against each other now and then. Tiny Terror's take on royalty, X-Babies wedding crashing. If you thought the character of Mojo was an attempt at meta commentary, wait till you witness the events of Excalibur Mojo Mayhem number 1. This time, we will see the X-Babies unionize against the working conditions that Mojo was putting them through. Not exactly, but some version of that does end up happening. The story starts with the X-Babies running from Mojo's police, not the ordinary kind, the trademark kind of police. While running, they come across a door that takes them to the House of Idea. Inside this place, they find that their costumes and character designs undergo changes, and finally, they reach a room called the House of Jack and Stan. Jack and Stan are the much beloved Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Yes, that's the first one. Wait for the others. Suddenly, the room they are in starts to shake and finally collapse. At their base, Mojo is delighted at this destruction, but asks what happened to them, only to track the X-Babies on Earth 616. Mojo gets infuriated and demands that they be recovered, and Major Domo gets a hold of the agent to get them back. The agent gets on the job right away. Back on Earth, Kitty Pryde is on her way to a royal wedding, and she's supposed to guard along with Excalibur in St. Paul's Cathedral. But she is not alone in her cabin, as light flares in the darkness when Kitty turns off the lights, only to discover little Dazzler. Kitty freaks out, and this causes her to phase through all the cabins on the train one by one. Finally, she finishes phasing out of the train to get off the bridge and falls into the river beneath. Little Storm and Little Rogue come to her rescue, get her out of the water, and explain what happened to them, along with the fate of Ricochet Rita. Kitty decides she needs Excalibur's help, so they reach the nearest police station to make the call. Upon reaching the station, they discover none of the phones there are working. Still, the policeman asks for Psylocke's signature on a document, and just when she signs, she turns into smoke, and the policeman reveals himself to be the agent. The agent absorbs Psylocke and gains her powers, while Kitty and the other X-Babies escape from him in a police car nearby. Early in the morning, they come across a van and persuade the people to exchange their vehicles. Turns out, these people were comic book artists who were going to a comic convention, and one of the people among them was Chris Claremont himself. As Kitty and the X-Babies get away with their car, Claremont's friends turn at him, judging him for their present situation. It's interesting how they ended up blaming Claremont for their dilemma, but the agent isn't far from them and won't stop anytime soon before he has managed to make all the X-Babies sign the contracts. As they stop for a bite at a restaurant, a girl asks Havoc for a signature. Havoc gives in to her request and signs for her, only to be absorbed by the agent in the girl's disguise, who also takes his powers. The agent manages to fool them again when Little Rogue and Little Dazzler envy Little Longshot's interest in Kitty. Disguised as a stranger, he manages to trick them by asking them to sign a document, allowing their true love to fall for them. Little Colossus fights him while the rest manage to escape. Again, the agent comes across them when Kitty is going through the lost and found at the station for her things, but this time, Wolverine slashes the woman's butt, smelling that it had to be the agent in disguise. Finally, the surviving team reaches the royal wedding of the Queen of Ruritania, and right when the priest asks if anyone has any objections to the wedding, Kitty phases out of the floor with a sign seeking help from the Excalibur. Right then, it is revealed that the priest is the agent in disguise and blows sneezing powder at Kitty. Right then, the HWO agents rush in, but the agent manages to use Little Dazzler's powers to put them out. Meanwhile, Excalibur manages to attack the agent, and Little Longshot uses the opportunity to cut out the bag containing all the signed contracts of the other X-Babies. Kitty gets a hold of the papers and phases the ink through the paper, thus releasing all the X-Babies off the contract, and the agent loses all the powers he had gained from them. Once free, they defeat the agent and start pondering what action should be taken against them. Before they could decide, it was revealed that the agent was Ricochet Rita under Mojo's contract. Mojo appears and states that while the other humans have managed to escape, Rita is still under his contract and he will use that to his benefit. Little Storm stops him and asks for a deal, releasing Rita while the X-Babies return to Mojo. Mojo thinks this would work to his benefit, so he agrees to it and opens a portal for the X-Babies to return to the Mojoverse. As each one of them returns, Rita jumps in before the portal closes because of her attachment to them. As the portal closes, Captain Britain declares that the villain has managed to win, but Shadowcat disagrees and realizes it won't be easy. In the Mojoverse, the X-Babies, now without a contract under Mojo, start demanding and asking for better work conditions, to which Mojo realizes his defeat. He gives in to these demands, thus proving that the mutants win in the end. This issue has to be one of the most brilliant meta-commentary issues in the Marvel chapters, considering how smartly Claremont manages to use the X-Babies to benefit something beyond the world of the comic book narrative. Even though Marvel has had a history of issues with the creators, it is unclear if Claremont managed to show this entire concept using the issue. But yes, we can be sure Mojo won't misuse the X-Babies or Mojo for their benefit in dealing with a particular plot. Fate of the X-Babies. The X-Babies appeared in many future issues, with arcs that included helping out the other X-Men against certain enemies. They managed to prove their worth as one of the X-Men renditions that shouldn't be that capable, really, considering that they are just kids. After Mojo's base of operations was usurped by the heroes, Gog and Magog went in to hunt the X-Babies down, but the Dazzler came to their rescue and they stayed on Earth 616, the Royal Palace. Later, a version of the Xavier School was created for them called the Clubhouse for Gifted Youngsters in the Umbrella Forest. Marvelous verdict. Nowadays, we get to see a variety of reboots of popular franchises, which is valid for literature too. Certain worlds created in the books were revisited via prequels or reboots, and we get to see a different rendition of the world we previously knew. Such is the case with X-Babies too. As we know, they were brought in when the multiple realities were already invoked, to give us a taste of different renditions of our favorite characters. There are a lot of benefits to this in terms of plots, considering the writers get to bring out favorite characters in a new light and put them in a circumstance that otherwise seemed impossible. But Chris Claremont didn't use the opportunity for jokes, as he managed to bring a certain depth to the X-Men arc and make some of the best meta commentary in Marvel history. Even though Mojo appeared in the revival of the X-Men animated series, X-Men 97, there was no reference to the X-Babies. But this gives a chance for the X-Babies to make their debut, and we can only hope that the creators bring along all the jokes that Claremont made, considering the series is a revival at the time when Disney has managed to create a variety of shows and projects around around the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They can bring Disney as a character itself, but that would be going too far, and Deadpool and Wolverine will probably deal with that joke already. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.